I never imagined my life would change completely that September afternoon when the Duartes arrived in our small town. I, Helena Montero, second of 5 daughters of a respectable middle-class family, had always considered myself too observant to be swept away by gossip or the commotion that took over our community. But I confess that even I felt a pang of curiosity when I heard that a wealthy businessman from São Paulo had purchased the old Silva estate. Mother was ecstatic. 5 daughters. She would sigh dramatically every morning. 5 daughters, and not a single marriage in sight. Father would just smile from the corner of his armchair, hidden behind his newspaper, accustomed to his wife's matrimonial musings. My eldest sister, Juliana, at 24 with her serene temperament, was Mother's greatest hope. I, at 22, was considered too difficult, a euphemism for intelligent and opinionated. The first time I saw Rafael Duarte was at the welcome ball the town hall organized. He was exactly as we had imagined, handsome, elegant, and surprisingly kind. He had those eyes that smiled before his lips did, and I immediately noticed the way he looked at Juliana. My sister, always so reserved, blushed when he invited her to dance. But it wasn't Rafael who captured my attention that night. It was the man who accompanied him. Tall, with an aristocratic bearing, perfectly combed dark hair, and an expression of supreme disinterest on his face. Henrique Valença, heir to one of the country's most traditional families, was there as if fulfilling a tedious obligation. "He's handsome, isn't he?" whispered my sister Beatrice, the 3rd eldest, barely 18 and already too romantic for her own good. "If you like the arrogant type," I replied, not taking my eyes off him. There was something magnetic about Henrique, even though everything about him screamed superiority and detachment. Throughout the evening, I watched him refuse dance invitations, respond with monosyllables to conversation attempts, and maintain that rigid posture, as if surrounded by inferior people. When Rafael finally introduced him to our families, Henrique barely looked at us. "Montero," he repeated our surname, as if cataloging irrelevant information. "A pleasure." The word sounded completely devoid of sincerity. "The pleasure is all ours," Mother responded, with that smile she reserved for important people. I remained silent, analyzing this man who seemed so determined to despise us. That's when I heard it. I was near the veranda, seeking fresh air, when voices came from the adjacent room. I immediately recognized Henrique's deep tone. "You're enjoying yourself too much, Rafael," he was saying. "Don't be fooled by smiles and pretty dresses. These small-town girls are all the same, poorly disguised fortune hunters." My heart froze. I held my breath to continue listening. "You're being unfair, Henrique," Rafael replied. "The Monteros seem to be an honest family, and Juliana, she's special." "Ah, yes, the eldest," Henrique laughed, a dry, unpleasant sound. "Pretty, I admit. But there's another one, the one with brown hair. Helena, I think. Too conceited for someone of her position." I saw the way she looked at me, as if she were judging me, as if she had the right. My hands trembled. Anger boiled inside me, hot and uncontrollable. Conceited? Me? When he was standing there, flaunting his arrogance as if it were a virtue? "Helena seemed intelligent," Rafael pondered, "and you barely spoke to her." "I don't need to speak to someone to recognize ambition disguised as indifference," Henrique cut in. "Believe me, Rafael, this family has only one goal: to marry off their daughters to anyone with enough money. And I won't be the one to fall into that trap." I left before they could see me. Henrique's words echoed in my mind like slaps. Each syllable was an unfair accusation, a cruel judgment based on nothing but his own prejudices. That night, lying in my bed, I promised myself I would never give Henrique Valença the satisfaction of knowing his words had affected me. If he considered me ambitious and conceited, I would show him true indifference. He was nothing more than a handsome man with a heart too small to match his fortune. But even as I made this promise, a treacherous part of me couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way his dark eyes seemed to hold secrets, about the firm line of his jaw, about the way his long fingers held the wine glass. I hated him. I was certain of it. So why couldn't I get him out of my head? In the following weeks, our routine changed completely. Raphael became a constant presence in our home, always finding excuses to visit Juliana. Mother was radiant, already mentally planning her eldest daughter's trousseau. Henrique, of course, occasionally accompanied his friend, always maintaining that aristocratic distance that so irritated me. During one of these visits, I found him alone in Father's library. He was leafing through a copy of Machado de Assis with an expression that, for an instant, seemed genuinely interested. "I didn't know you could read," I commented, entering the room. "I imagined you hired someone to do that for you." Henrique looked up, and I saw a spark of surprise in his eyes before returning to his mask of indifference. "Miss Montero, what a sharp tongue. Your mother must have an enormous task trying to marry you off." "My mother has many qualities, but interfering in her daughter's choices is not one of them," I lied shamelessly. "And as for a sharp tongue, well, I prefer honesty to hypocrisy." "Honesty?" He closed the book with a sharp snap. "Is that what you call impertinence? And is that what you call arrogance? Sophistication?" We stood staring at each other, the air between us charged with tension. For the first time, I saw something beyond disdain in his eyes, an intensity that made my heart race in a way I refused to analyze. "You know nothing about me," he said finally, his voice low and controlled. "And you know nothing about me," I retorted. "But that didn't stop you from judging me, did it?" Something passed across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or even guilt. But before he could respond, Raphael and Juliana entered the library, breaking the moment. I left with trembling hands and a racing heart. I hated Henrique Valença. I hated the way he made me feel. Angry, confused, too alive. And most of all, I hated that a part of me, however small, wanted to prove to him that he was wrong about me. But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't lower myself to seek the approval of a man so full of prejudices and arrogance. Or at least, that's what I told myself on the nights when his face invaded my thoughts before sleep. The following months were an elaborate dance of inevitable encounters and deliberate avoidance. Raphael and Juliana were clearly in love, which meant Henrique and I were constantly forced into proximity. Every dinner, every social event, every casual visit became a silent battlefield where we exchanged barbs disguised as courtesy. "Miss Helena," he would say with that deep voice that deeply irritated me, "I presume you read the article about agrarian reforms in this morning's newspaper?" "You presume correctly, Mr. Valença," I would respond, sweet as poisoned honey. "Although I doubt someone of your privileged position can truly understand the complexities of the matter." His eyes always narrowed at these times, a small but satisfying reaction. "Privileged position doesn't mean ignorance, miss. Perhaps if you—" "If I what?" I would interrupt, raising my chin defiantly. "Were less opinionated? More submissive? Forgive me, but I wasn't raised to flatter the male ego." And so we continued, provocation after provocation, while our families watched with expressions ranging from amusement to concern. It was Beatrice who first noticed. My youngest sister had that perceptive way that romantic people often possess. One night, after another tense dinner, she entered my room without knocking. "You like him," she declared, sitting on my bed as if she had discovered the secret of the universe. "Who?" I asked, feigning concentration on the book I wasn't really reading. "Henrique Valença. You like him." I laughed, a sound too forced to be convincing. "Have you gone mad? I detest him." "Exactly," said Beatrice, smiling wisely. No one cares so much about someone they really detest. You spend more time thinking about him than I spend thinking about new dresses. That's ridiculous. It's obvious. She tilted her head. And you know what else is obvious? He likes you too. My heart jumped, but I kept my expression neutral. Now I know you've gone mad. Helena, I see the way he looks at you when you're not looking, as if you were a puzzle he's desperate to solve. He looks at me with disdain, I corrected. The way he looks at everyone he considers inferior. Beatrice sighed. You're so intelligent about some things and so blind about others. After she left, I lay awake for hours, her words echoing in my mind. Could it be possible? No. Henrique had made his opinions about me very clear that night at the ball. I was just a small-town girl with ambitions above her station. But then I remembered small moments. The way he appeared at the same events as me. How he always seemed to know where I was in a room. The intensity in his eyes during our arguments, as if each word of mine mattered more than he wanted to admit. No. I was being foolish. Beatrice had watched too many melodramas. It was then that Camila Vasconcelos entered the scene like a perfumed tornado. Camila was everything I wasn't. The only daughter of one of the region's wealthiest families, educated in Swiss schools, with clothes that cost more than our annual budget, and she wanted Henrique Valenza with a determination that bordered on obsession. Helena, dear, she cooed at a charity tea, her voice sweet as arsenic. I heard you and Mr. Valenza have been having interesting discussions. How brave of you to provoke a man of such position. I forced a smile. Talking about literature and politics is hardly provocation, Camilla. Oh, of course. Her eyes gleamed with barely disguised malice. Although I should warn you, Henrique confided in me that he finds opinionated women tiresome. He prefers more refined company. A calculated pause. More suitable to his position. Each word was a sharp blade, designed to cut where it hurt most. And it worked. Even knowing Camilla was playing her games, I felt doubt creep in. How good for you, then, I replied, keeping my voice steady, being so refined and suitable. Her smile was pure victory. Exactly what I think, dear. That night, I confronted Henrique at a soiree at the Almeida house. He was on the veranda, alone for the first time in weeks. Mr. Valenza, I called, my voice colder than intended. He turned, genuine surprise in his eyes. Miss Helena. I came to ask you a favor. A favor? One eyebrow rose. Stop coming to my house. Stop attending the same events as me. Your presence is inconvenient. Something passed across his face. Pain, perhaps. But it was too quick to be certain. Inconvenient, he repeated, as if testing the word. I see. I doubt it. You always think you understand everything, don't you? His voice had an edge I didn't recognize. Always so certain of your opinions, so quick to judge. I judge? I laughed, bitter. This coming from the man who condemned me without even knowing me? What are you talking about? That night, at the ball, I heard you talking to Raphael. Henrique went pale. Helena. Don't call me that, I cut in. We don't have the intimacy for such familiarity. You made very clear what you think of me and my family. So please, spare us your forced presence. I know you're here only because of Raphael and Juliana. You don't need to pretend tolerance for my sake. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I turned to leave, but his hand caught my arm, soft but firm. No, he said, voice hoarse. You understand nothing. We stood frozen in time, his touch burning my skin through my sleeve. His eyes, so dark and intense, held mine. For the first time, I saw something in them beyond arrogance, vulnerability, conflict, and something else I couldn't name. Then explain it to me, I whispered, hating the tremor in my voice. But before he could respond, Camilla appeared, her crystalline laugh cutting the moment like glass. "There you are, Henrique. I've been looking everywhere for you." Her eyes slid to me, cold despite the smile. "Helena, I didn't know you were still here. I thought you'd already left." Henrique released my arm as if it burned. "Camilla, come, darling. You promised to teach me that dance step you learned in Paris." She entwined her arm in his, possessive. I looked at Henrique, waiting. For what? For him to dismiss her? To choose to finish our conversation? But he only nodded, allowing himself to be led away. And I stood there, alone on the veranda, with a heart broken in a way it shouldn't be, considering I supposedly hated that man. In the following weeks, Henrique and Camila were seen together constantly. She clung to him like ivy on a wall, and he didn't seem to mind. Or at least, he didn't resist publicly. Juliana tried to console me. Raphael says Henrique is just being courteous, that there's nothing between them. "I don't care," I lied, pretending interest in the embroidery I was ruining. "Helena." "Juliana, please." I looked up, tired. "I know you and Raphael are happy, and I'm genuinely happy for you. But Henrique Valenza is a chapter that shouldn't have even started." But life, I discovered, rarely respects our wishes for unwritten chapters. Winter arrived, bringing constant rains and a melancholy that perfectly matched my mood. Raphael had officially asked for Juliana's hand, and our house was in a frenzy of planning. Mother would finally see a daughter well married and to a man who genuinely loved her. It was everything we could wish for. Except that the Valenza family did not approve. Henrique's mother, Dona Amelia Valenza, arrived in town like a storm of jewelry and disapproval. Tall, elegant, and with eyes as cold as her son's, she made it clear from the first meeting that she considered our family absolutely inadequate for an alliance with the Duartes. "Raphael has always been impulsive," she said at a disastrous tea in our living room, barely touching the cake Mother had spent the morning preparing. "I hope this situation resolves itself before it becomes a permanent embarrassment." Juliana, always kind, went pale. Raphael, beside her, turned red with anger. But before he could respond, Henrique intervened. "Aunt Amelia," his voice had a warning tone. "Raphael is perfectly capable of choosing his own wife. You defend him now?" Dona Amelia turned to him, eyebrows raised. "How interesting, considering your own opinions about convenient marriages." Something passed between them, a silent communication I couldn't decipher. Henrique looked away first. It was in this tense atmosphere that the truth about Camila began to emerge. I found the first clue by accident. I was at the municipal library, searching for references for an article I was writing for the local newspaper, when I heard familiar voices in the adjacent section. "You promised, Camila." Henrique's voice sounded tired. "You said this was just friendship." "And it is," Camila responded, sweet as always. "But people see what they want to see, dear, and everyone sees how perfect we are together. We're not perfect together. We're nothing together." Yet, there was something dangerous in her voice now. "But we can be, especially if you finally forget this ridiculous obsession with that Montero girl." My heart stopped. "Don't bring Helena into this," Henrique said, and there was something in his voice that made my chest tighten. "Why not? Everyone knows you're interested in her. Oh, you hide it well, but I see. The way your eyes search for her in a room. How you tense when she's nearby." Camilla laughed, a humorless sound. "It's pathetic, actually. She's completely unsuitable for you." "Camilla." "No, let me finish." Her voice became lower, more calculating. "You know what happens if you marry her, Your family will reject you. You'll lose your place in the family business. Everything you've built, everything you are, lost. For a girl who doesn't even like you. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly. And so do you. That's why you continue with me, playing this little game. Because it's safe, approved, expected. A pause. And because deep down, you know she's right to despise you. After all, you really are the arrogant man she thinks you are. I didn't hear his response. I left before they could find me, my head spinning. Henrique was interested in me? Was it true? But Camila was also right about the rest. Any alliance between us would be disastrous. His family would never accept it, and I didn't want to be the reason he lost everything. Even though a treacherous part of me wanted to be important enough for him to risk it all. That night, Beatrice invaded my room again. "Are you going to the spring ball tomorrow?" she asked, throwing herself on my bed. I wasn't planning to. Because of Henrique. I looked at her, tired of pretending. "What did you hear?" "That he and Camilla might announce their engagement at the ball." Her eyes were full of compassion. "I'm sorry, Helena." Something inside me shattered. "Why? It means nothing to me." "Helena, I'm tired, Bea." My voice came out weaker than intended. "Please, I just want to sleep." After she left, I let the tears fall. Silent, hot tears for something that never was and never could be. For a man I supposedly hated but couldn't stop thinking about. For possibilities that existed only in my foolish imagination. The next day, however, brought an unexpected visitor. Father Miguel, our parish priest, came to see me specifically. The old man had known me since childhood and had always been a wise counselor. "Helena, my child," he said, sitting in Father's library. "I need to tell you something about Henrique Valença, something that might change your perspective on him." And so began the revelation that would alter everything. Father Miguel leaned forward in his chair, his aged hands clasped together. "What I'm about to tell you must remain in confidence, Helena. Henrique doesn't know I'm sharing this, but I believe you deserve to understand the man behind the mask." I nodded, my heart already pounding with anticipation. 5 years ago, the priest began, Henrique was engaged to a young woman named Isabella Mendez. She was beautiful, charming, and from an acceptable family. Everyone thought it was a perfect match. "What happened?" I whispered. Isabella was only interested in his fortune. She was secretly involved with another man, a gambler who had accumulated considerable debts. The plan was to marry Henrique, access his wealth, and run away with her lover. Father Miguel's eyes were sad. Henrique discovered the truth 3 days before the wedding. He found letters between Isabella and her accomplice, detailing how they would drain his accounts. My hand flew to my mouth. "That's horrible." "It gets worse, my child. When Henrique confronted her, Isabella publicly claimed he had dishonored her, hoping to force the marriage anyway through scandal. His family believed her at first. He had to produce the letters to prove his innocence, which exposed Isabella's scheme, but also humiliated his family publicly. So that's why. Why he's so guarded, yes. Why he suspects every woman of being a fortune hunter. Why he judges so quickly." The priest sighed. "He built walls around his heart, Helena. Walls made of cynicism and prejudice. But I've watched him these past months. The way he looks at you. It's different. You've gotten under his defenses in a way no one else has." "But he said such terrible things about me," I protested, even as my heart ached for what Henrique had endured. Words spoken in fear, child. Fear of being hurt again. Fear of his own feelings. Father Miguel stood. "I'm telling you this not to excuse his behavior, but to help you understand it. What you do with this knowledge is up to you." After he left, I sat in stunned silence. Everything I thought I knew about Henrique shifted, rearranging itself into a new pattern. His arrogance was armor. His judgments were shields. And beneath it all was a wounded man afraid to trust. But did that change anything? He had still hurt me, still looked down on my family. I spent the rest of the day in turmoil, and when evening came, I made a decision. I would go to the spring ball. Not for Henrique, but for myself. I wouldn't hide or run from my feelings any longer. The ballroom was magnificent, decorated with spring flowers and glittering candles. I wore my best dress, a deep blue silk that Juliana insisted brought out my eyes. As I entered, I felt Henrique's gaze find me immediately across the crowded room. He looked breathtaking in his formal attire, but his face was drawn, almost haunted. Camilla was on his arm, resplendent in emerald green, but his eyes were only on me. "Helena!" Beatrice grabbed my arm excitedly. "You came, and you look beautiful." "Thank you, Bea." I tried to smile, but my attention kept drifting to where Henrique stood. The evening progressed with dancing and conversation, but an undercurrent of tension ran through everything. I danced with several partners, laughing and smiling, but always aware of Henrique's eyes following me. Finally, as midnight approached, Camila stood at the center of the room, clinking her glass for attention. My stomach dropped. "My dear friends," she began, her smile radiant and false. "I have the most wonderful announcement to make. Henrique and I." "Miss Vasconcelos." Henrique's voice cut through hers, firm and clear. "I'm afraid you're mistaken." The room fell silent. Camila's smile froze on her face. "Henrique, darling, what are you doing?" she hissed. "I'm correcting a misunderstanding." He stepped away from her, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found mine. "There will be no announcement tonight because there is no engagement. There never was, and never will be." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Camilla's face turned scarlet. "How dare you humiliate me like this?" she cried. "I dare because I've been a coward long enough." Henrique moved through the crowd, and to my shock, he was walking toward me. "I've let fear and pride dictate my actions. I've hurt someone who deserves only respect and honesty." He stopped in front of me, and the entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. "Miss Helena Montero," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I owe you an apology. Multiple apologies, in fact. I judged you unfairly. I spoke cruel words born of my own insecurities. I let my past poison my present, and in doing so, I wounded the one person who saw through my defenses to the man I truly am." Tears pricked my eyes. "Henrique, please, let me finish." His voice was raw with emotion. "You were right about me. I was arrogant. I was prejudiced. I looked at your family and saw only what I feared, people who might want me for my fortune. But you've never wanted anything from me except honesty and respect. Things I was too proud to give." He took a shaky breath. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that everything I said, everything I did, it was never about you. It was about my own fears. And you, Helena Montero, are the bravest, most intelligent, most remarkable woman I have ever known." The room was utterly silent. I could feel hundreds of eyes on us, but all I could see was Henrique, vulnerable, honest, real. "You heard me that night," I said softly. "At the first ball. You knew I overheard what you said to Raphael." "Yes, and I've hated myself for those words every day since. They were spoken by a frightened man trying to convince himself he didn't care. But I did care, Helena. From the very first moment I saw you, I cared. And that terrified me. Why are you telling me this now? Why publicly?" "Because you deserve the truth. All of it. No more hiding, no more pretending. He glanced around at the watching crowd. Let them all know. Let my family know. I would rather lose everything than lose you without fighting for you. Henrique. My voice broke. I love you, Helena. I think I've loved you since the night you called me out for my arrogance in your father's library. You challenged me, pushed me, refused to let me hide behind my walls. You made me want to be better, to be worthy of you. Tears were streaming down my face now. You absolute fool. He smiled sadly. I know. No, you don't understand. I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the hope and fear warring in his eyes. I love you too. I've loved you even when I wanted to hate you. Even when you drove me to madness with your pride and prejudices. I loved you. Loved, he whispered. Past tense. Love, I corrected, reaching up to touch his face. Present tense. Always. The ballroom erupted in applause and cheers, but I barely heard it. Henrique pulled me into his arms, holding me as if I might disappear. I don't deserve you, he murmured into my hair. No, you don't, I agreed, smiling against his chest. But I choose you anyway, as long as you promise to keep being honest. No more walls, no more masks. I promise. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes shining. Helena, will you? If you're about to propose in front of all these people after one conversation, the answer is absolutely not, I interrupted, laughing. He grinned, that genuine smile I'd seen so rarely. Fair enough, but someday? Someday, I agreed, after you've properly courted me and proven you can control that arrogant tongue of yours. That might take a while. Good, I'm not going anywhere. And there, in the middle of the spring ball, with half the town watching, Henrique Valença kissed me. It was gentle and sweet, and promised of all the tomorrows we would build together. The days following the spring ball were a whirlwind of gossip, scandal, and family drama. Our small town had never seen such excitement, and I found myself at the center of it all. Mother oscillated between euphoria at securing 2 advantageous matches for her daughters and anxiety about the social implications. What will people say? She fretted constantly. A public declaration like that. So improper. But father, dear father, simply smiled and said, They'll say our daughters married for love, and what could be more proper than that? Juliana was delighted, of course. Her romance with Raphael had progressed smoothly once Henrique publicly rejected the Valença family's objections. I always knew you two were meant for each other, she confided one afternoon as we sat in the garden. You challenged each other in ways no one else could. We nearly destroyed each other first, I reminded her. Love worth having is never easy, Helena. But she was right about the challenges. Dona Amelia Valença descended upon us like an avenging angel, determined to salvage what she saw as her nephew's catastrophic error in judgment. Our first meeting after the ball was memorable. Miss Montero, she said, ice dripping from every syllable as she sat rigidly in our parlor. I trust you understand the gravity of your situation. I'm afraid I don't understand your meaning, Dona Amelia, I replied calmly, though my hands trembled in my lap. My nephew has made a public fool of himself over you. Rejected a perfectly suitable match, humiliated our family name. All for what? A girl with no fortune, no connections, and no understanding of the society she's attempting to enter. Each word was designed to wound, but I'd learned from my confrontations with Henrique. Armor yourself in truth, and barbs lose their sting. You're correct that I have no fortune, I agreed, and my connections are indeed limited to this small town. But I never attempted to enter your society. Dona Amelia, your nephew pursued me, not the other way around. And if his choice brings shame to your family, perhaps you should examine why love is considered shameful. Her eyes flashed dangerously. Love? You think this is about love? This is about a young man's infatuation overriding his good sense. It will pass, Miss Montero. And when it does, he'll resent you for the opportunities he lost. Then let him tell me that himself, I said softly. I won't be frightened away by warnings of a future you've imagined. You insolent Aunt Amelia. Enrique's voice cut through the room like a blade. I hadn't heard him arrive, but there he stood in our doorway, his face a mask of controlled fury. That's enough. Enrique, I'm merely trying to make the girl see reason. The girl has a name, Helena, and she sees reason far more clearly than you or I have for years. He entered the room, moving to stand beside me. His hand found mine, and I drew strength from his touch. I asked you to respect my decision. Instead, you've come here to intimidate the woman I love. That ends now. You cannot be serious about this match. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. His voice was firm, final. I love Helena. I will marry her, with or without your blessing. But understand this. If you cannot treat her with the respect she deserves, you will lose me entirely. The choice is yours. The silence that followed was deafening. Donna Amelia looked between us, her face a study in shock and anger. Finally she stood, gathering her dignity around her like a cloak. Very well, she said coldly. I see I have no choice but to accept this situation. But don't expect me to celebrate it. I don't expect celebration, Enrique replied. Only civility. After she left, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. That went well, I said shakily. Enrique pulled me into his arms. I'm so sorry you had to endure that. She's your family. You endure much worse for me. Never. He tilted my chin up to look at me. You are my future, Helena. My family will learn to accept that. But Donna Amelia's visit was only the beginning of our troubles. Camilla, humiliated and furious, began spreading vicious rumors about me throughout the town. I was a scheming seductress, according to her tales. I had entrapped poor, innocent Enrique with feminine wiles and manipulation. The gossip stung, but what hurt more was seeing the doubt it planted in some people's eyes. Even some of our neighbors, people who'd known me all my life, seemed to wonder if there was truth to Camilla's poison. It was Beatrice who helped me see clearly one particularly difficult day. I'd come home in tears after overhearing two women at the market discussing how I'd caught myself a rich husband through shameless behavior. Don't let them see you cry, Beatrice said fiercely, wiping my tears. That's what Camilla wants. She wants to break you. Maybe they're right, I whispered. Maybe I am reaching above my station. Maybe... Stop. She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. Helena, you are the smartest, bravest woman I know. Enrique fell in love with you because of who you are. Your mind, your spirit, your courage. Not because you schemed or manipulated. Love found you both despite your best efforts to resist it. That's not shameful. It's beautiful. Her words reminded me of why I'd fallen for Enrique in the first place. Not his money or status, but the man beneath, flawed, wounded, but trying to be better. That evening, Enrique came to call, and I could see immediately that he'd heard the rumors too. I'll sue Camilla for slander, he declared, pacing our parlor like a caged tiger. I'll demand she publicly retract every lie she spread. And give her rumors more attention? I shook my head. No, let her talk. The truth will reveal itself. Helena, your reputation is strong enough to survive malicious gossip. Enrique, if we react, we give her power. If we simply live our lives, love each other openly and honestly, the truth will speak louder than her lies. He stopped pacing, looking at me with wonder. How are you so wise? I'm not wise, I'm just tired of letting fear and other people's opinions dictate my happiness. I stood, moving to him. I love you. That's real. Everything else is just noise. He kissed me then, gentle and reverent. I don't deserve you. You've said that before. Several times, actually. It's getting old. He laughed, and the sound filled me with warmth. You're right. From now on, I'll simply try to earn you every day. Much better. But earning each other, we discovered, required more than grand declarations. It required daily work, compromise, and the willingness to be vulnerable. We had our first real argument about 2 weeks later. Henrique, in his enthusiasm to provide for our future, had purchased a house in the city without consulting me. I thought you'd be pleased, he said, bewildered by my anger. It's beautiful, Helena. Close to the best shops, the finest society. And did it occur to you to ask me what I wanted? I demanded. To include me in this decision about our future home? I wanted to surprise you. I don't want surprises, Henrique. I want a partnership. We're supposed to be equals, remember? Or was all that talk about respecting me just words? He looked stricken. Helena, I never meant... What did you mean then? To make decisions for me? To assume you know what's best? No. I just... He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm trying to take care of you. I don't need to be taken care of. I need to be included, consulted, respected. I took a breath, trying to calm down. Henrique, I know you're used to making decisions alone, but we're building a life together. That means both of us have a voice. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You're right. God, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry, Helena. Old habits. But that's no excuse. He took my hands. Tell me what you want. In a home. In a life. I'm listening. And he did listen. We spent hours that night talking about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. It was the first of many such conversations, as we slowly learned to navigate this new reality of us. We also had to navigate the complexities of our different backgrounds. Henrique had been raised in wealth and privilege, accustomed to certain standards and expectations. I had been raised with love and practical sense, but without the refinement his world demanded. He never made me feel less than, but I felt it sometimes. At dinners with his business associates, when the conversation turned to places I'd never been, experiences I'd never had, in the way waiters looked at me, trying to determine if I belonged in fancy restaurants. You're quiet? Enrique observed one evening after a particularly trying dinner party. Just tired, I lied, but he knew me too well now. Helena, talk to me. So I did. I told him about feeling inadequate, about worrying I'd embarrass him in his world. He listened without interruption, and when I finished, he said, "Do you remember what you told me that night in your father's library? That you preferred honesty to hypocrisy?" I nodded. That's what my world lacks, Helena. Honesty, authenticity. Everyone is so busy performing, maintaining appearances, that they've forgotten how to be real. You're real. You say what you think. You stand by your convictions. You don't apologize for who you are. That's not inadequacy. That's strength. And it's exactly what I need. What we all need. His words helped, but the insecurity lingered. Until the night of the Charitable Foundation dinner. It was a major society event, and I was terrified. But as we mingled, something unexpected happened. People were drawn to me, not because of who I was supposed to be, but because of who I actually was. My enthusiasm for the Foundation's educational programs, my ideas for reaching underserved communities, my genuine interest in making a difference. By the end of the night, I'd been asked to join 2 committees and had inspired several large donations with my passionate speech about literacy programs. "See?" Henrique whispered as we danced. "You don't need to change for my world. You're changing my world just by being in it." And I finally began to believe him. Spring turned to summer, and with it came new challenges and unexpected gifts. Juliana and Raphael set a date for their wedding, a beautiful autumn ceremony that would unite our families officially. The planning brought our households together frequently, forcing Dona Emilia to interact with us regularly. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she thawed. It started small. A comment about Mother's excellent taste in flowers. A nod of approval when I offered my opinion on the reception menu. But the real breakthrough came unexpectedly one afternoon when I found her alone in our garden. She was examining Mother's rose bushes, and there was a wistfulness in her expression I'd never seen before. "They're beautiful," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, and for a moment, her careful mask slipped. "My mother grew roses. Before our family lost everything when I was young." I'd never heard this story. Henrique had never mentioned it. "I was 15, she continued, surprising me with her openness. "My father's business partner embezzled everything. We went from wealth to poverty overnight. I know what it's like, Helena. To be looked down upon. To be considered unsuitable. To have doors closed in your face because of circumstances beyond your control." Understanding flooded through me. That's why you worked so hard to rebuild the family name. And why I was so adamant that my children marry well. I didn't want them to ever experience what I had. She touched a rose petal gently. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that respectability isn't the same as worth. That social position doesn't guarantee happiness. Dona Amelia, please call me Amelia, if you're to be family. She paused, then looked directly at me. "I've been cruel to you, Helena, unjustly so. You reminded me of myself at your age, passionate, opinionated, unwilling to bend to society's expectations. I resented you for having the courage I lacked." Tears pricked my eyes. "You weren't cruel. You were protecting your family." "I was protecting my pride," she corrected. "And in doing so, I nearly drove away my nephew and missed the chance to know a truly remarkable young woman." She held out her hand. "Can you forgive a foolish old woman?" I took her hand, squeezing gently. "There's nothing to forgive. We all let fear guide us sometimes." From that day forward, Amelia became an unexpected ally. She taught me how to navigate high society, but more importantly, she shared stories about Henrique's childhood, helping me understand the man I loved even better. Meanwhile, Henrique was undergoing his own transformation. He'd begun working closely with Father on charity projects, using his business acumen to help expand educational opportunities in our town. Watching him interact with children from humble backgrounds, seeing him treat everyone with genuine respect regardless of their station, I fell in love with him all over again. "You're staring," he said one afternoon, catching me watching him help a young boy with his reading. "Just admiring my handiwork?" I teased. "Your handiwork? You were quite impossible when I met you. I like to think I've had some influence on your improvement." He grinned, pulling me close despite the children giggling around us. "You've had every influence. You made me want to be better, to be worthy of you. And now? Now I'm just trying to be myself. Turns out that's enough." But our path wasn't without stumbling blocks. One particularly difficult moment came when Henrique's business partner pressured him to close a deal that would profit them greatly, but displace dozens of families from their homes. "It's legal," Henrique explained, conflicted. "But it's not right." "Then don't do it," I said simply. "Helena, it's not that simple. This deal could set us up for years. We could expand, hire more people, create more opportunities. built on the suffering of those families? I shook my head. That's not the man I fell in love with. That's not who you are anymore. He wrestled with the decision for days. The old Henrique would have taken the deal without hesitation. But finally, he walked away from it, choosing ethics over profit. His business partner was furious. Several colleagues called him foolish. But Henrique stood firm. I can live with less money, he told me that night. I can't live with becoming the man I used to be. I'd never been prouder of him. As autumn approached and Juliana's wedding drew near, another unexpected visitor arrived, Camila Vasconcelos. She appeared at our door one afternoon, looking smaller somehow, less sure of herself. I know I have no right to ask, she said quietly. But may I speak with you, Helena? Curious, I led her to the garden, the same place where Amelia and I had made peace. I owe you an apology, Camilla began, not meeting my eyes. For the rumors, for the cruelty, for everything. I waited, saying nothing. I was so certain Enrique belonged to me, she continued. We came from the same world, the same background. It seemed inevitable that we'd end up together. When he chose you instead. She finally looked up, and I saw genuine pain in her eyes. It shattered everything I believed about myself. If wealth and beauty and connections weren't enough, then what was I? Camilla, please let me finish. I lashed out because I was hurt. I wanted to hurt you back, to prove you didn't deserve him. But watching you two together these past months, seeing how he looks at you, how you challenge and support each other, I finally understand. You didn't steal him from me. He was never mine to begin with. And I've been chasing after the wrong things my whole life. What will you do now? I asked gently. Find out who I am beyond my father's money and my family's name. She smiled, small but genuine. Maybe even find what you and Henrique have, real love, not based on suitability or expectations, but on truly knowing and accepting each other. I hope you do, I said sincerely. And Camilla, you're stronger than you think. You came here, admitted your wrongs. That takes real courage. Thank you for seeing that. I don't deserve your kindness. Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway. We parted on better terms than I'd ever imagined possible. It felt like closing a chapter, leaving behind the bitterness and pain. That evening, I told Henrique about Camila's visit. She apologized? Genuinely? He looked stunned. People can change, Henrique. You taught me that. I taught you? He laughed. Helena, you're the one who believed I could change when I didn't believe it myself. You saw potential in an arrogant, prejudiced fool and loved him anyway. You weren't a fool. You were hurt and scared. There's a difference. Was. Past tense. Because of you. He pulled me into his arms. Do you know what you've given me, Helena? Hope. The belief that I can be better. That my past doesn't define my future. That love is possible even for someone like me. Someone like you? You mean someone handsome, intelligent, and increasingly humble? He grinned. When did I become humble? It's a work in progress. Good thing I have an excellent teacher. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I reflected on how far we'd both come. From that first night when Henrique had judged me so harshly, through all the misunderstandings and pain, to this moment of perfect understanding and peace. We weren't perfect. We still argued, still challenged each other, still had to work at understanding our different perspectives. But that was the point. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth the effort, someone who made you want to be better, someone who saw you at your worst and loved you anyway. What are you thinking? Henrique asked, sensing my contemplation. That I'm glad I went to that first ball. Glad I overheard your conversation with Raphael. Glad for every argument and misunderstanding. Glad I was an arrogant fool. Glad you grew beyond it. Glad we both did. We needed those challenges to become who we are now. Wise words from a wise woman. I learned from the best. A certain arrogant air taught me that pride and prejudice are barriers we build ourselves, and that tearing them down is the only way to find real happiness. That air sounds like he was very lucky to find you. He was, but I was equally lucky to find him. And as summer faded into autumn, with Juliana's wedding approaching and our own engagement official, I knew that our story, born of misunderstanding, shaped by growth, and sealed with forgiveness, was just beginning. Juliana's wedding day dawned bright and perfect, as if the heavens themselves celebrated her union with Raphael. Our house had been in chaos for weeks with preparations, but watching my sister walk down the aisle in Mother's restored wedding dress, seeing the pure joy on Raphael's face, made every frantic moment worthwhile. They look so happy, Beatrice whispered beside me, dabbing at her eyes. They do, I agreed, stealing a glance at Enrique across the church. He was watching me instead of the ceremony, and the love in his eyes made my breath catch. After the ceremony, during the reception, Enrique pulled me aside to the garden where we'd shared so many significant conversations. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Enrique, it's Juliana's day. Which makes it perfect. Today is about love, Helena. About two people who overcame obstacles to be together, just like us. He knelt, and my heart stopped. I know we're already engaged. I know we've already committed to each other. But I wanted to do this properly. Helena Montero, will you marry me? Not because it's expected or arranged, but because I cannot imagine my life without you? Because you've made me a better man? Because I love you more than I ever thought possible to love another person. Tears streamed down my face. You absolute romantic fool. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped a ring onto my finger, a simple band with a single perfect sapphire. It was my grandmother's. Amelia insisted I give it to you. She said it belongs with a woman of true worth. I love it. I love you. And I love you. So much that it terrifies me sometimes. Good. Love should be a little terrifying. It means it matters. We set our own wedding date for the following spring, wanting time to build our relationship even stronger before taking that final step. Those months were a revelation, learning to live not just in love's first passion, but in its daily reality. We argued about ridiculous things, the color of curtains, the placement of furniture, whether to have fish or chicken at the reception. But we also learned to compromise, to listen, to value each other's opinions. Enrique moved some of his business operations to our town, refusing to be an absent partner. He worked closely with Father, combining his business expertise with Father's local knowledge to create opportunities for young people in our community. I continued writing for the local newspaper, now expanding to cover social issues and championing causes dear to my heart. Enrique supported every word, even when I criticized policies his business associates favored. Aren't you afraid I'll damage your reputation? I asked after a particularly scathing article about working conditions in local factories. Your conscience is one of the things I love most about you, he replied. If my reputation can't withstand being associated with truth and justice, it's not a reputation worth having. Winter brought challenges. Enrique's business faced difficulties when he refused to compromise his newfound ethics for profit. There were nights when he came home frustrated, worried about providing the life he thought I deserved. I don't need grand houses or expensive things, I reminded him during one particularly difficult evening. I need you. Present, happy, true to yourself. Everything else is just details. I want to give you the world, Helena. You've given me something better. You've given me yourself, your real self. That's worth more than all the wealth in the world." As spring approached, our wedding preparations intensified. Unlike Juliana's traditional affair, Henrique and I wanted something more intimate, more meaningful. "Let's write our own vows," I suggested one evening. "Scandalous," he teased. "Whatever will society say?" When have we ever cared what society says? So we wrote our vows, pouring our hearts onto paper. Promises not just to love but to grow, not just to honor but to challenge, not just to cherish but to know truly and deeply. The night before our wedding, Mother came to my room with a letter. "This arrived today," she said softly, "from Isabella Mendez." My heart stuttered. Henrique's former fiancé? With trembling hands, I opened it. "Dear Miss Montero, you don't know me, but I know of you. I heard about your engagement to Henrique Valenza, and I felt compelled to write. I owe you, and him, the truth. Henrique never dishonored me. Every accusation I made was a lie, born of desperation and greed. He was a good man, who I used shamefully. I've spent 5 years living with that guilt. I destroyed a good man's ability to trust, damaged his family's reputation, and nearly prevented him from finding real love. Thank you for seeing past the walls I helped him build. Thank you for loving him despite the scars I left. He deserves the happiness I could never give him. I'm writing not to ask forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but to ensure you know the full truth, and to wish you both every happiness. Sincerely, Isabella Mendez." I read it 3 times, emotions warring within me. Anger at what she'd done, pity for what it had cost her, gratitude that Henrique had survived to find me. "What will you do?" Mother asked. "I'll show it to Henrique. He deserves to know she's finally acknowledged the truth." I folded the letter carefully. "And then I'll let it go. The past is past. Tomorrow is our future." On my wedding day, I woke to spring sunshine and absolute certainty. No doubts. No fears. Only joy. Beatrice helped me dress in a gown of simple ivory silk. No jewels except Enrique's grandmother's ring. No veil. Because I wanted to see him clearly from the moment I entered the church. "You're beautiful," Beatrice breathed. "I'm happy," I corrected. "That's what makes me beautiful." Father was crying when he came to escort me. "My brilliant girl," he said, voice thick. "I'm so proud of you. Not for the match you've made, but for the woman you've become. You never compromised who you are. You never apologized for your strength. And you found a man who loves you for it." I learned from the best father in the world. The church was filled with friends and family, a perfect blend of Henrique's world and mine, united in celebration. But I only had eyes for the man waiting at the altar. Henrique looked breathtaking in his formal attire, but it was his expression that made my heart soar. Love, wonder, joy, and yes, a hint of tears. As I reached him, he whispered, "You're here. You're real. This is happening." "Having second thoughts?" I teased softly. "Never. Just overwhelmed by how lucky I am." Father Miguel smiled at us both. "Dearly beloved, we gather today to witness a most unusual union. Not unusual because of differences in station or fortune, but unusual because these 2 people found love despite every obstacle, including themselves." Gentle laughter rippled through the church. "They have chosen to write their own vows," he continued. "Henrique?" Henrique took my hands, his voice steady and clear. "Helena, I stand before you not as the man I was when we met, proud, prejudiced, afraid, but as the man you helped me become. You saw past my defenses to the wounded soul beneath. You challenged me, infuriated me, and ultimately transformed me. I promise to spend every day earning the love you give so freely. to listen when I want to assume, to be humble when pride tempts me, to stand beside you, not above you, to let you be exactly who you are, brilliant, passionate, and wonderfully opinionated. I promise to love not just your strength, but your vulnerabilities, not just your victories, but your struggles. I promise to be your partner in every sense, sharing burdens, celebrating joys, building a life that honors both of us. Most of all, I promise to never stop growing, learning, and becoming worthy of you, today and always. Tears streamed down my face as I spoke my own vows. Henrique, when we met, I saw only your armor, the arrogance, the pride, the walls you'd built. But you taught me that people are more than their defenses. That hurt can masquerade as disdain, that love can bloom even in the most unlikely soil. I promise to see you always, not who you were or who you're supposed to be, but who you truly are. To challenge you when you need challenging. To support you when you need support. To be honest even when honesty is hard. I promise to build with you, not just for you. To be your partner, not your prize. To value your growth as much as my own. And I promise to love you, flaws and all, struggles and all, forever and always. Because loving you, Henrique Valença, has been the greatest adventure of my life. Then by the power vested in me, Father Miguel said, smiling through his own tears, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Enrique kissed me, gentle and deep, and the church erupted in applause. The reception was perfect. Speeches that made us laugh and cry, dancing until our feet hurt, and countless moments of pure joy. But my favorite moment came late in the evening, when Henrique and I slipped away to the garden for a quiet moment alone. Mrs. Valença, he said, testing my new name. Still getting used to it, I admitted. You don't have to take my name if you don't want to. I'd never... Henrique. I placed my hand over his mouth. I chose it, just like I chose you. Stop apologizing for things I freely give. He kissed my palm. Sorry. Old habits. We'll work on that together. Together, he repeated, pulling me close. I liked the sound of that. So do I. We stood there, wrapped in each other, and in the perfection of the moment. Around us, spring bloomed. Flowers opening, trees budding, the world renewing itself. It felt symbolic somehow. We too were blooming, growing into something new and wonderful. Helena? Enrique said softly. Yes? Thank you. For what? For seeing me, for believing in me, for loving me when I couldn't love myself. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes shining, for being brave enough to fight for us when I was too afraid. We fought for each other, I corrected. That's what love is, Henrique. Not grand gestures or perfect words, but the daily choice to see each other, know each other, and choose each other anyway. When did you become so wise? About the same time you became so humble, I teased. So never? Exactly. He laughed, that full, genuine laugh I'd learned to treasure. I love you, Helena Valença, my brilliant, beautiful, impossible wife. And I love you, my former, arrogant, currently adorable husband. Adorable? I'm trying out new adjectives. Would you prefer devastatingly handsome? Much better. As we returned to our reception, hand in hand, I reflected on our journey, from prejudice to understanding, from pride to humility, from conflict to harmony. We weren't perfect. We'd stumble and fall, argue and reconcile, grow and change. But we'd do it together, with honesty and love guiding our way. And that, I realized, was the greatest triumph of all. Not conquering love, but surrendering to it. Not changing each other, but growing with each other. Not finding perfection, but embracing our beautiful, imperfect reality. Our story had begun with misunderstanding and judgment. It had survived through honesty and forgiveness, and it would continue through choice, the daily choice to love, to grow, to be better together than we ever could be apart. As Henrique spun me around the dance floor, both of us laughing, our families watching with joy, I knew with absolute certainty this was exactly where I was meant to be, with this man, in this moment, beginning our forever. Between pride and passion, we had found love, and it was the most beautiful story of all.